Hey everyone, today I'm taking a look at a small box, two-player only card game called Ka-Ching. This game only takes around 15 minutes to play, and it originally came out back in 2001. So the game is going to look like this when it's set up, where you have these 5 columns of 7 cards. These have been completely randomly put out, and you can see they slightly overlap each other to show what's underneath the front cards. And there's also going to be a bank of money. Each player is going to get given 20 money to start with, and also one of these wild stock cards. The game really couldn't be more simple, and on each player's turn you have to take one of 2 possible actions. The first of which is to purchase one of these cards that are uncovered at the top of one of these columns. So you could purchase this 6 here, the 4, the 3, the 2, or the 3. And when you do that, you are going to pay an equal amount of coins to the value of that card. So let's just say that the first player wanted to buy this green 6. They'll take that green 6, they'll put it in front of them as public information so the other people can see what you've previously bought, and then you're going to pay an equal amount of money back to the bank. The second action you can take is to sell a pair of cards of the matching colour, and when you do that you are going to multiply the scores together. So you can see this is a 6, this is a 3. We're going to multiply them together to get 18 coins or 18 money from the bank and discard these 2 cards. And when you do that, you can tell now that I've made actually a profit of 9 coins, because I only paid 9 to buy these in the first place, but I'm selling them for 18. So you're going to keep on taking actions in turn until there are only 2 columns of cards remaining, and then you're going to have one more opportunity to sell, and then whoever's made the most money at the end of the game will be the winner. You also have this wild card here which can be sold in conjunction with any card at all. So let's just say that this player wanted to sell this 5, but they didn't have another red card. They could sell it with this one here for a total value of 10. Okay, so you can see from the demo there, this game is pretty much as simple as it gets. However, there is certainly more than meets the eye with Ka-Ching. So I love the way this game is boiled down into 2 actions, and those actions are as simple as it gets. You know, buy a card, obviously spending the money, or sell a pair of matching cards. However, the consequences to those actions is absolutely huge, because if you want to buy something, then of course you could be revealing something beneath it for your opponent to buy, and they could have a card in front of them already that's going to multiply with them massively for a huge profit, which of course you don't want to do, because this game is very tight and it is as much of making profit yourself as preventing your opponent from getting a good card to give them even more profit, because it is only 2 players and you need to be very much on the ball and stop your opponent from gaining the upper hand. But when you sell, you might even sell sometimes in order just to not buy something, so that your opponent will pick something up and then you can get what's underneath it. So having some cards in front of you just as an option to sell in the future can be useful, just to stop you having to pick something up. But when you're doing that, you might not be selling them for maximum profit, because of course you want to get the bigger cards multiplied with each other to get those huge dividends. You know, if you're multiplying a 6 with a 5 or a 6 with a 4, you're getting a huge chunk of money there. But you know, if you're only multiplying a 6 by a 2, obviously that's going to be a lot less profit you have. But that might be a decision you make in order to stop your opponent getting a certain card, because everything beneath might be these 6s, or there could be like a low card covering it up. You know, for example, if it was like this and you really wanted this purple card, you're not going to take this one, because you know that your opponent is going to grab that one to stop you from having it. So again, I love the fact that you have to take one of those 2 actions. No matter what you do in this game, it feels uncomfortable. And you are under a constant pressure to have some cash flow in your pocket or at your expense, because before you know it, if you keep on buying the high value cards, you're going to be out of money, and that might mean that you are forced to sell one of your cards at a rate you didn't really want to, just so that you can take actually more actions by having the money in the first place. And that kind of brings your wild card into play. You need to know, when am I going to spend this one? Am I going to use it as just a kind of a get out of jail free card to buy myself some time? Or am I going to use it as a quick little cash injection? Or am I going to save it to the end as a kind of contingency to make sure I sell something, or have the opportunity to sell something when the game ends? Because before you know it, all the cards are going to be gobbled up, and that can really catch you off guard at times, because again, you do only play until there are only 2 columns left, and those 2 columns can be completely full. So sometimes you'll be playing through a lot of cards where you'll play almost to exhaustion, and sometimes you'll play until there's still actually quite a few cards remaining, and you could have the kind of pairing cards with them in front of you and not have the opportunity to buy the ones buried deep within that column. So again, lots of consequences to your action here, and it's all available to you visually. And I think that might be where some of the analysis paralysis comes into play, and in a good way, because it does add some strategy to the game, where you know where these cards are. It's not like these are all completely hidden and they're just a stack of cards. You can see when that blue 6 is coming out. You can see when the red 6 is coming out, and how are you going to pace yourself? Are you going to pick up a high value card now in hope that you fight through all the way through this column in order to multiply it with this one, but at the same time, again, managing your income to make sure that you have enough money when that time comes. So you can see from that despite the very simple rule set, there is a lot of tension here, and that runs from start to finish. Now, probably my biggest praise that I have on this game is the amount of time it takes. This is only 15 minutes to play. You can explain this one in probably about 10-20 seconds, and you can get straight into playing. And I think that is a fantastic job, because the rules completely get out of your way. You can play this one with anybody, and you can almost always play from a level playing field from the get-go, because again, the rules are not an obstruction, and no matter your experience with the game or with gaming, you are going to understand how this works and going to understand the kind of decisions you're making from the get-go. So yeah, full props for that one. And the fact that you can get a game of this level and nuance and kind of decision making in 15 minutes is quite astonishing for me. This might be the best ratio to time to decision space ratio that I have in my collection, or at least it's right up there, which is massive praise for me. And the more I game, or more I get into gaming, that means more and more. Time is precious, and when you can get a game of this crunchiness in 15 minutes, that is quite unbelievable and a rare thing to come across. I also think the replayability for this game is decent, because despite it being a very simple and straightforward game, and it's not like a lot of board games now where you have all these novelty factors or things to discover, new cards put into the deck. No, this is as bare bones as it gets, but it does offer this visceral tension which is never not going to be interesting. It's never not going to be engaging, and you cannot solve this game. Depending on the layout, it's going to completely change how you approach it. So, you can't just play this on autopilot and get bored with it, because if you do, you're going to get absolutely annihilated. And, it's rare that games have that nowadays, because they tend to go for a replayability in terms of just content and new stuff and different things to spruce up the game, whereas this one, the game itself and the layout of the kind of formulation of the game and how the cards are laid out is where the replayability lies. Quite obviously, the interaction of this game is a strong aspect of the gameplay. Everything you do is going to affect and impact your opponent. You need to have a look what cards they have in front of them, because you need to know what to prevent from giving them to or giving them access to. And that is going to massively influence every single decision you make. It's a very confrontational head-to-head 2-player game where interaction is a very pivotal part of the experience. The production for this game is, as you'd expect, a very simple, small box game, simply made up of cards. However, I do like how all the different colours pop. I'm colourblind, and I can clearly differentiate what all the different colours are. All the symbols are nice, or the numbers are nice and bold, so you can just look at a glance at what they are, and you don't have to squint and get up close. The same applies to the money. So yeah, just simple cards. Decent card stock, not the best, but this is kind of almost like a mass production style game. Okay, so let's get into some final thoughts on Ka-Ching. So I'm going to come straight out and say this game is excellent. There's not many games out there, if any games, that offer such an experience in 10 to 15 minutes. That is a huge triumph, and that cannot be kind of overstated, really. I love the visceral tension here. The decision space is huge, and that agonising, horrible discomfort of not wanting to do anything on a turn but being forced to do so. I love the money management. How are you going to spend your money efficiently before you run out and have to sell a pair of cards? How are you going to use your little wild stock card there? What's the current situation of your opponent? How can you manipulate or capitalise on their situation by blocking cards for them to get? How to utilise taking cards when they have to sell. It's just absolutely a joy to play. It's an uncomfortable 15 minutes, but it's one that's going to keep you coming back for more. One that completely gets out of your way in terms of rules overhead, and you can set this one up in literally a minute and get it played in 10 minutes. So honestly, that timestamp is just unbelievably good. And this is going to be a staple of my collection for many, many years. I can never see me parting with this one. And despite me not always being in the mood to play this one because it is so head-to-head, it is so confrontational, you know, this is one of those evergreen style games where mechanically it is scaled back, it's streamlined, it's just bare bones, pure tension. And, you know, those games always do kind of weather the storm and stand the test of time well. So that is my final thoughts on Ka-Ching. Certainly deserves a shield of quality. And if you can pick this one up, because, you know, I'm sure particularly in America, you can get this one for next to nothing really, so dirt cheap. You might have to pay a bit more in the UK or anywhere else in the world to get one imported, but it's still not drastic. And, you know, I think it's worth your time. So that is Ka-Ching, an excellent two-player game that's completely been lost to the sands of time.